We've warned people 1,000 times, don't come here at night, especially after 11:15 p.m. Now you might think that's a dramatic line straight out of a horror movie, right? But it's actually a direct quote from a very nervous police officer standing over a genuinely gruesome, totally unexplainable crime scene at India's Ganga Barrage. The stakes we're talking about today aren't just a slap on the wrist for trespassing. They are quite literally life and death.
Welcome back, focused learners. I am so thrilled you're here for today's explainer because we are taking a highly analytical look at the terrifying urban legend of Kanpur's Ganga Barrage. We're going to break down the exact mechanics, the timeline, and the very chilling rules of this curse. And we're doing it all by relying entirely on a documented case study of 5 friends who made, well, a fatal error in judgment. If you love seeing how a local myth operates like absolute clockwork, you are definitely in the right place.
Okay, Part 1, the 11:15 rule. Let's dive right into this and establish the fundamental lore that governs this haunted location. The Ganga Barrage operates under a very strict, uncompromising timeline.
To really grasp what happens to those who break the rule, we have to look at the environment itself, because the duality here is just terrifying. Look at the contrast. At 2 p.m., it's an idyllic tourist trap. You've got families visiting, couples taking selfies, tourists sipping tea by the riverside. It's lively and it's completely safe. But flash forward to 11:15 p.m. and the sensory shift is staggering. It turns into a supernatural trap. We're talking unnatural winds, decapitations, and victims literally frozen in fear. During the day, the river belongs to the city, but at night, it belongs to something else entirely.
And there's a very real body count backing up this legend. Exactly 19 years ago, in that dead silence just before dawn, the banks were literally painted red. 2 headless bodies were found washed up at the water's edge. But the most unsettling part? Their eyes were frozen wide open in absolute terror, like they had witnessed something completely beyond human comprehension. So yeah, this isn't just a spooky campfire story, it's a location with a heavily documented history of grim, unexplainable discoveries.
That brings us to Part 2, the ill-fated road trip. How does someone actually fall victim to this? Let's introduce our case study. We have 5 friends, Abhi, Preeti, Shweta, Sartak, and Akash. They were visiting from Odisha, crashing with Abhi's grandparents in Kanpur. Like most of us, they had that natural human curiosity. They spent their days safely exploring, eating street food, having a great time. But that same curiosity ultimately led to a massive mistake, when they decided they just had to see the barrage.
When Abhi casually mentioned their plan to his grandmother, her reaction was immediate. All the color just drained from her face, and she delivered this incredibly explicit warning. Go during the daytime if you want, but after 11:15 p.m., don't even say that place's name. She told them that at that hour, the wind doesn't belong to humans, and the voices you hear aren't just calling you, they're pulling you. Now, let me ask you, if someone looked at you with trembling eyes and told you that, would you have listened?
Well, they pretended to agree, but curiosity won out. Let's see how this builds, because their descent into the paranormal is strangely methodical. At 10 p.m., they head out for a quick night drive, promising themselves they won't even leave the car. By 10:30 p.m., the environment sharply shifts. This unnatural fog completely swallows their headlights. By 10:45 p.m., a single flickering yellow streetlight appears on a road that is supposed to be pitch black. And by 11 p.m., they are entirely caught in the trap, experiencing things that completely defy logic.
Which leads us to Part 3, Encounters in the Fog. As they push deeper into that fog, the rules of reality just start to warp. We're going to slow down a bit here, because understanding these terrifying anomalies is absolutely crucial to grasping how this curse isolates its victims.
Sitting under that lone yellow streetlight, they actually found a puri cart. But the vendor, he wasn't human. His eyes were entirely white, no pupils whatsoever. His lips were black, looking almost burned, and he had this crooked, deeply unnatural smile. Avi, trying to break the tension, nervously joked about starting a horror podcast. The vendor didn't even blink. He just leaned in and whispered, "Fear only begins when the water calls your name." That's when the psychological torment really kicked in.
But it wasn't just psychological, it was deeply, horrifyingly sensory. The friends actually ate the food the vendor handed them. Now we know that as a classic folklore taboo, never eat the food. And the taste? It wasn't spicy or minty, it was strictly metallic. It tasted exactly like licking rusted iron.
Just imagine that awful cold blood-like sensation coating your tongue. For them, it was physical confirmation that whatever they were interacting with was not of this world.
And if the rusted iron taste wasn't proof enough, the vendor's departure absolutely cemented it. They panicked, sped off in their car, and looked back in the rearview mirror. The streetlight instantly went out. Then, in the dark, the impossible happened. Step 1. The vendor's fingers vanished. Then, his face just dissolved into thick smoke. Finally, the entire cart faded away as if it had never existed in physical reality to begin with. The normal laws of physics had officially left the chat.
Further down this nightmare road, against literally every survival instinct they possessed, they stopped and let 2 hitchhikers into their freezing car. A mud-soaked boy and girl. Almost instantly, the temperature inside plummeted so low they could see their own breath. Then came the horrifying reveal. Preeti dropped her phone on the floorboard, reached down, and realized the stranger's feet were facing completely backwards. When the hitchhikers abruptly asked to get out, the girl dragged an icy finger across the glass and delivered this devastating guarantee. No one is reaching home tonight.
Part 4. Escape from the barrage. We are hitting the climax of our explainer now. They are on a direct path to the water. The sound of the river is getting louder, but it doesn't sound like rushing water. It sounds like exhausted breathing. It literally sounds like something drowning over and over again.
So, Abhi and Sarthak step out of the car to check the road. Minutes agonizingly pass. Finally, only Sarthak returns, but his walk is dragging, he has this twisted smile, and there are dark, wet stains around his lips. He casually mentions that Abhi is over in the bushes eating sweet guavas. But here is the crucial contradiction, the ultimate red flag. Abhi is severely allergic to guavas and absolutely hates sweet things. This one vital detail proved the entity wearing Sarthak's face was not human, and right after saying that, his face stretched and morphed right back into the muddy boy they had just picked up.
As the entity grinned at them, promising that everyone would taste sweetness, Anjali silently gripped a necklace she was wearing. It was a Rudraksha bead. Now, for context, this is a traditional prayer seed used in Hinduism, known specifically for providing spiritual protection against dark and unnatural forces. This specific survival mechanic forced the creature to violently recoil. Honestly, it's the only reason they even had a chance to fight back.
They rushed out into the bushes and found the real Abhi unconscious and ice cold. As they frantically dragged him back to the car, the muddy girl appeared, standing perfectly still on the railing above the river. Her eyes glowed deep red and her reflection was twisting unnaturally in the black water below. With a voice that cracked like wet bones, she made her chilling declaration. In the daytime, this place belongs to you. But after 11:15, it belongs to us. And right at that exact second, the dashboard clock in the car stopped dead. The time? Exactly 11:15 p.m.
What followed was a totally chaotic, violent escape. Both entities' voices started echoing around them, constantly demanding Anjali take off the Rudraksha. Wet handprints began slamming and scratching violently against the outside of the car windows. Whispers surrounded the car from every possible direction. Above them, ahead of them, right at the glass. Abhi floored the accelerator, but the road itself seemed to slightly shift beneath them. The tires screamed and the car crashed headfirst into a massive tree, swallowing them in shattered glass and total darkness.
Part 5. The curse lingers. Now, the physical crash was undeniably devastating, but in the aftermath, we learn a very dark truth about the Ganga Barrage. Surviving the physical barrage does not mean you've escaped the supernatural curse, because this trauma, it followed them straight into the hospital wards.
Now, what's really interesting here is the medical anomalies recorded by the doctors. They bordered on the impossible. Abhi and Sarthak were unconscious for days. Shweta went temporarily blind. But most bafflingly, their bodies were freezing cold to the touch, yet their hearts continued to beat normally. It completely stumped the medical staff. And to make matters worse, those same upside-down wet fingerprints kept appearing on the outside of their fourth-floor hospital windows every single night.
7 days later, they recovered just enough to leave. Abhi's grandmother sprinkled holy water on them and warned them to absolutely never answer any voices on the road. They fled Kanpur right at sunrise. But even in the bright daylight, on the highway leading out of the city, they saw the dissolving pani puri cart one last time. The vendor didn't speak. He simply tossed a crumpled paper onto their windshield. It read, "Do not return at night," in dripping red letters. When they looked back up, he was gone.
You would think that's the end of it, right? They escaped. But months later, with life seemingly back to normal, the curse reached out again. At exactly 11:15 p.m., Angela received a call from an unknown number. When she answered, a wet whisper came through the speaker. How sweet were the guavas? The call instantly disconnected. At that exact moment, moisture began spreading across her bedroom window, inside her home, slowly forming upside-down letters. Ganga Barrage, 11:15. The curse had followed them all the way back to Odisha.
The locals have always known that during the day, the river belongs to the city. But after 11:15 p.m., the river chooses its own people. And once it has your name, distance doesn't matter at all. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a thought to chew on when the sun goes down today. If your phone rang tonight at exactly 11:15 p.m., would you answer it?